I thank the Saryu Trust to give this opportunity to meet many scholars and friends who wish to learn about India's cultural contribution to the world. In our history books, we all read about invasions, but we don't read about the 2000 years of glorious aspect of our history and culture when India was called Jagat Guru. Still, India is a cultural leader of the world, but unfortunately, we don't teach such things in the schools or colleges. And we don't get inspiration from that India has such a grand persona. India is a distinct land. India is a distinct culture. India has given the world which no country could give. The philosophy of India, the literature of India, whatever India has given is immense. There are millions of documents scattered all over the world, but how many of us know about it? Many of the European scholars, many large number of Chinese, Japanese, and Korean scholars in the Southeast Asian countries have been working on them. But unfortunately, this is not a subject in our universities. So what I'm going to talk about today is very basic, is very preliminary, you can say, that how India contributed towards development, cultural and civilizational development of the world. India is a land of rishis and munis, of gurus and acharyas who have bequeathed us an immense treasure of culture, huge number of Sanskrit texts written on various aspects, not only sacred but also secular. The sciences, including science and technology, we were the best. We had the best grammarians in the world. We had the best authors in the world. Our rishis were the first to compile the Vedas, followed by a huge Vedic literature. Then we come to the Ramayana, the Mahabharata, the great poets and dramatists, etc., like Kalidasa, Bhavabhuti, and so many. So, when we talk of philosophy, when we talk of all kinds of arts, all kinds of arts means the performing arts as well as the visual arts. So it's a huge area to study. So I'm going to start with a few just very brief, giving you a very brief introduction about India's cultural contribution to the world. So on the top, what I'm showing you, I'm starting with Om. There are a large number of manuscripts that are discovered from all over Asia. They all start with Om, sometimes Om Avignamastu, Om Swastyastu. There is Om. Om has been written by many countries in their own way because they have preserved the script, the way it reached them, the way the acharyas took them. So they have still retained the same form and they have developed their or their own styles of writing Om from Mongolia. In Mongolia, it is written differently. In Tibet, in China, in Japan, in Southeast Asian countries, it's written all over differently. So here what you can see is Om written by a Japanese calligrapher. This is the script that was taken in 8th, 9th century by the Indian acharyas to East Asia, to China, and from there it went to Korea and Japan. On the other side, I have specially put another calligraphy by a Japanese calligrapher just to see how much respect do they have for India. Here you can read this is A. A is the beginning of all kinds of knowledge. As in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Krishna says, Akara, Varna Nam Akarosmi, I am the beginning of all knowledge. So, A is the beginning of all knowledge. The knowledge in India is divine. It is meant for all. The acharyas, the gurus, the rishis, they did not have any copyrights. They just gave whatever they had and it was meant for everybody, not only for India. So the knowledge is divine. So because knowledge is divine, so you can see like a deity, this letter sits on a lotus flower, and there is a halo like a deity that is surrounding her. Knowledge has to be pure. Below another, there is another lotus that signifies the purity of knowledge, because there can be knowledge of all kinds. There can be knowledge which can destroy the world, but there can be knowledge that can give the transcendental, the ought values to the world, that can give peace and harmony to the world. They can show the path of friendship to the world, brotherhood to the world. And wherever the Indians went, wherever our knowledge went, where our texts went, wherever our acharyas went, they took the knowledge of kindness, of compassion, of love for all. So it has to be the knowledge, they said, has to be pure. But when you have purity of knowledge, but it has also to be powerful, there should be power in it. Otherwise, knowledge is of no use. Sometimes it is of use, but when there is a conflicting situation, when there is a difficult situation, then you need power also. In India, our rishis said, Shastre cha Kaushalam. One has to be efficient, one has to be proficient in Shastra and Shastra both. And this concept I can see in Japan also. They say Ken Zen Ichi. And this Vajra below the lotus, placed on a lotus pericarp, indicates power. And I would give you just one example that the great rishis, Vishwamitra, Vasishtha, they had huge knowledge, but they could not fight with the demons who were destroying the yagyas, who were disturbing them all the time. So when we talk of culture, people think that culture is just a way of life. Culture is just the way we live. But the culture in India is very different. It is based on the Sanskrit, huge Sanskrit literature. Sanskritashrita. Sanskriti, Sanskritashrita. Our culture is based on the huge, the immense treasure of literature that has been bequeathed to us by the rishis, by the gurus, by the acharyas. And that literature, that idea, that philosophy that gave us a distinct culture. And that distinct culture gave us a special kind of mindset. In India, we call it sanskara. So, from Sanskrit to Sanskriti to Sanskara. So, our culture are based on the sanskaras that we have derived from the immense literature and philosophy of life. And that is how we have developed very distinct kind of traditions and customs. Some of the traditions and customs, people just think they are useless. And in the modern times, people don't have time to follow all this. They say we are so busy in our lives, we have no time to preserve and to follow the traditions and customs. But I must tell you, there is a lot of research required on our traditions. They are so scientific. Our culture, our customs are so scientific. I just give you one example that the what is it called? The Biharis perform that Chhat Puja. How they do it? They stand during the sunrise and the sunset in water the whole day. They don't even drink a drop of water. They detoxify their body. They dehydrate their body, and the body is ready to receive the energy from the sun. So, like a plant receives energy, photosynthesis happens in the best way when it is sunrise and sunset. So, the similar way they stand in water and offer prayers to sun for an hour or so. There is a lot of science behind it. Religion and ideals. We are the people of realization. We don't say these are the concept. This is the philosophy that everybody has to accept. No, there is Hinduism. Whatever we have in India is Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, Islam. means that you are free to think. We are not the people of one book. We are not the people of one God. We are the people of in realization. Every concept we have to meditate. We have to think. We have to ponder over, because every soul, every human being has a divine spark inside him. Devas, Hridayastham Bhavaya Devam. Every human being, every heart has the divine spark in him. So this is how all these ideals, all these, that is why we have so many books, so many texts written over the centuries by so many acharyas and gurus. So our religion, our concept of religion, our concept of ideals, our concept of philosophy is totally different from all other cultures, from all other religions, whether it's we, I mean Buddhism, Jainism, and Hinduism, all. And this is what we took, this is what we gave to all those countries wherever the Indian acharyas reached, wherever the Indians reached as traders, wherever the Indians reached as princes also. So when we talk of the definition of Asian culture, we cannot fix it. There is no fixed or absolute definition that can be given to the Indian culture, to the Asian culture. I'm just giving you a quotation from a great French Indologist, Sylvain Lebel. He said, India, when he was writing about India, he said, Mother of wisdom, India gave mythology to her neighbors. It is the mother of philosophy. She gave 3/4 of Asia a god, a religion, a doctrine, a philosophy. Thailand and Cambodia are the greatest recipients, according to him. Although I must say that is not only the Thailand countries, Cambodia and Thailand. There are other countries also, but I'm just quoting him. So when we talk of culture, then there are many levels of culture. Culture doesn't mean what you're wearing or how you dress up, what you eat or what you speak. Culture has many levels. It has a physical level when we talk about languages and scripts that India gave to all. I'm talking in terms of in from the perspective of what India gave to the world. So first of all, we have to look at the languages, the scripts, the ways of recreation, the customs and traditions. I take it as a physical culture, but there are other levels of culture like intellectual culture. In intellectual culture, we have the huge number of thousands and thousands of texts that are translated into the languages of other countries. For example, when the Indian acharyas reached China, they took and the Chinese scholars and pilgrims, when they came to India, both ways Indian texts were carried to China, and around 3,000 Sanskrit texts were translated into Chinese, not only once, many times, because whenever there was a problem with any of the Chinese emperors, to solve those problems, they used to invite Indian acharyas, they used to send missions to visit the holy places, and those texts were translated into Chinese, and they compiled them into a compendium that is called Tripitaka. But when these texts reach Tibet, there are around 5,000 texts that are translated into Tibetan, and they categorized into two. The one compendium is called Kanjur and the other is called Tanjur. So in Kanjur and Tanjur, there are almost 5,000. Why I'm not giving you the exact numbers? Because there are many versions of Kanjur and Tanjur. There are many versions of Tripitaka compiled in China by many dynasties, compiled in Korea, and compiled in Japan. So I'm not giving you the exact number, and sometimes there are differences. And when I'm talking of Tripitaka, you may ask me a question that what is the difference between the Pali Tripitaka and the Chinese Tripitaka. Yes, there are differences. There are many texts which are there in the Pali Tripitaka but are not there in the Chinese Tripitaka. And there are many texts which are there in Chinese Tripitaka but are not there in the Pali Tripitaka. So there are variations, and also in Kanjur and also in Tripitaka, there are differences in the text, in the way they collected it, the way they compiled it. So India gave them Hinduism, Buddhism, or when we talk of Hinduism, then Vaishnavism, Shaivism. There is a huge pantheon that India gave to these countries. There is a huge literature, and also the literature was so inspiring for them. For example, when Mahabharata reached Indonesia, they created their own texts on the basis of stories of Mahabharata. So in Indonesia, there is not just one text Mahabharata. There are many texts that are based on Mahabharata's different stories of Mahabharata. And they have so much of respect. Once I was there in a royal family, and they invited me to read and correct some of the manuscripts. So for the first manuscript that they showed me was Bharat Yuddha. So Mahabharata Yuddha. So they call it Bharat Yuddha because I had studied their script that is called Old Javanese. There is an island in Indonesia, Java, that was a great center of Sanskrit learning, and they have created a huge literature in Javanese language and also script. So when they wrote their own text, then they wrote the basic shlokas are written in Sanskrit, and they have written commentaries in Old Javanese. So as soon as I started reading that, I started it. The first word, for the first sentence I read, and they were angry with me. Can you just imagine why these people, the royal family, was angry with me? Because as I started, I said Vyasa. They said no, Bhagavan Vyasa. I bowed to them. Yes, this is the country who says Bhagavan Vyasa, and we Indians who are so much, especially if somebody like me, with so much of devotion towards my literature, towards my culture, towards my acharyas. Even I am not saying Bhagwan Panini, I am not saying Bhagwan Vyasa, I am not saying Bhagwan Valmiki. Oh, I was so embarrassed. Then the next thing came about Valmiki, again, Bhagwan Valmiki. And they asked me about, do you study Mahabharata? It was long time back, around 40 years. I'm telling you this story that happened with me around 40 years ago. Have you studied Mahabharata? Oh, again, a very embarrassing question for me because I had never studied Mahabharata. I said in India, people have a belief that if you keep Mahabharata in your home, then there will be so much conflict and fight in the family. Oh, they were so unhappy. They said, Mahabharata, if you don't have Mahabharata in your life, you cannot live life because Mahabharata teaches you. Mahabharata gives you so many kinds of lessons to live life as a prince, as a king, as a layman, as a scholar, as a so many aspects of life are covered in Mahabharata. And if you don't study Mahabharata, you cannot understand life. You cannot live life. And when I went to Cambodia, I could see the largest panels of Mahabharata, and especially of churning of ocean. Churning of ocean. We have been talking about to our kids about churning of ocean, how there was a Devasur Sangram and how ocean was churned. So, how do they interpret this churning of ocean? They say when you churn the society, then you take out gems from the society. You need people. So, if you study the panels in the temple of Angkor Wat, that the themes are taken from Ramayana and Mahabharata, they all give us different kinds of lessons to live life, to live a peaceful life, to live a flourishing life, to live a powerful life, because all all these ideals, all this philosophy is very relative. We say Krodha is not good, but when a soldier is in the field of war, he has to be angry. But a mother cannot be angry towards her children. So this kind of lessons are there all over Southeast Asia. When you visit the temples like Angkor Wat, you visit the Prambanan temple. So what you see in Prambanan temple, this is the largest ever built Shaiva temple in the world. In even India has not built a Shaiva temple to the scale what Indonesia has done. So when I have been visiting all these temples a number of times, visiting Prambanan was like a dream coming true for me. There is a temple dedicated to Shiva, another to Brahma, another to Vishnu, another to Durga, another to Ganapati, and then there are the rides, and there are 225 smaller temples surrounding them. What you see there, what you don't see in many of our temples, but there what you see, and how they have preserved it. The earliest pictorial engraved Ramayana is there on the walls of the Prambanan temple. So when we talk of religion, when we talk of philosophy, when we talk of spirituality, it's all intermingled. Even if you want to study the impact of Indian performing arts, you have to go to temples like Prambanan. One of our eminent dancers, Dr. Padma Subramaniam, she had created a series of Karanas for a temple in Maharashtra. I'm sorry, I'm not giving you the name of the temple. But after that, when she visited Prambanan in Indonesia, she realized the same sequence of Karanas which she prescribed, she suggested for a temple in India, the same series she could find in Indonesia. So when we talk of ethical values, a country like China, they were so impressed by the philosophy of Indian, the Buddhist philosophy that they received, that a king, that an emperor can be compassionate to the masses. For them, it was only the power, only the political power. And what do you do when you have only the political power? When you have faith only in political power and showing off that power, what were they doing? They were building huge tombs. The largest tomb ever built in China is in Xi'an, that was built by the Emperor Qin Shi Huangdi. And all over Asia, wherever you go, where you go to Japan, you go to Korea, you go to Southeast Asian countries, what you see is tombs there. Whatever kind of arts do you have, paintings, sculptures, what you have, whatever you discover from these tombs is all related to the tomb culture. So tomb culture means a life after death. But when Indians reached there, when Indian culture reached there, they shifted their energies from tomb cultures to temple cultures. Whenever any capital was built, the first thing was done to build beautiful temples, monasteries, stupas to sanctify the state, to establish the ought values, to establish the dharma, because they wanted, because they aspired to rule as kings, as rulers who were working for the people. Because Ashoka is the first emperor in India for about whom we get proofs through his inscriptions that public welfare works were the most important, whether it is digging of wells, whether it is opening of hospitals, planting of trees, and all these things. So, public welfare was the most important in our culture. So, that we gave to all these countries. When I talk to the archaeologists in India, a question that I normally ask them, what is the earliest palace that has been discovered from India? What we have discovered in all of our archaeological sites are normally they are temples or monasteries or anything related to public. That means, does it mean that our kings were not building first for them, but they were building temples first? So there is a long history, and this is what we gave them. There were special temples built in all these countries for the protection of the state, for example. There are temples for state built in Japan. There is the earliest standing intact temple in Japan is Horyuji. The meaning of Horyuji is Dharma Vardhana Mahavihara. Dharma Vardhana Mahavihara. So, who built this and why did they build this? So, I'm coming to it later on. So, there is intellectual culture, there is aesthetical culture, and all sorts of things. When we talk about the India's contribution to these countries, first of all, is that it opened up new horizons of thought, new horizons of philosophy of life. What we gave them is writing systems. All the countries in Southeast Asia, they did not have any script to write. When our acharyas reached there, they devised, they drafted their own script on the basis of Indian scripts like Pallava, like Grantham, etc. And literature is a huge area that we can talk about. How our literature reached there and how it served as a basis for creation of their literature. Our literature gave them the foundation. For example, the beginning of literature in Japan goes back to the three commentaries written by their prince Shotoku Taishi on the three Buddhist sutras, Sadharma Pundarika Sutra, Vimalakirti Nirdesha Sutra, and there is one more, I'm just forgetting the name. So there are three sutras on which he wrote commentaries, and they are the earliest literary works in Japan, and from there starts the history of Japanese literature. Linguistics, wherever you go, the science of language, our grammarians were known all over these countries. From Mongolia to Indonesia, Panini was studied. Even now, Mongol scholars study Panini, and the Mongol language, the grammar of the Mongolian language is based on Panini. When I was working on my MPhil thesis, my subject was Sanskrit grammatical text discovered from Indonesia. And at that time, because there were many, and at that time I checked the catalog of the Tibetan texts also that are translated into Tibetan from Sanskrit. And I made a list of 49 Sanskrit grammatical texts, and I took that list to the historian of Sanskrit history of Sanskrit grammar. Here you can see Kumaraji, the Indian Acharya of 4th, 5th century. And he was a Kashmiri Brahmin. He became a monk and traveled abroad. He traveled towards China to spread the Dharma. And on his way, he was stopped in a small kingdom that is called Kucha now it is on the Silk Road, but now it is a part of China. That time it was not a part of China. So he was stopped there, and he was forcefully asked to leave his monk's robes because they were searching for an appropriate match for the princess, and he could have been the best match so far. So he was forced to marry the princess of Kucha, and they gave birth to Kumarajiva. Kumara, half of his name is from Kumarayana and the half is from Kumarajiva. And he is an acharya who is still known in Japan. They call him Kumaraju. And the Japanese say that out of 75,000 temples in Japan, 65,000 temples are based on the philosophy of the text that were translated by Kumarajiva. There is another Acharya that I'm showing you. This is Atisha. Atisha sacrificed his life. It was a time, 10th century, when foreign invasions had started and the monasteries, the universities were being destroyed. It was a huge question in front of him whether he should go or not. But he had to leave because the Tibetan emperor was so keen to re-establish Buddhism. Then he sacrificed his life, went to such a high altitude, which reduced the number of years he could live. And on the other side, you can see his workplace, the office, you can say, where he is to sit and work. These are some rare, very rare pictures that I'm showing you from Tibet. This is another Acharya. His name is Shubhakar Singh, and it is a self-made portrait. It is a rare portrait of any Acharya made by himself, and he has signed it. You can see Dev Singh Kar Dev Singh. So this is Shubhakar Singh, who was an Acharya in Nalanda University and who had gone to China, and he took the philosophy of Mantrayana, all the sects in East Asia that are based on the philosophy of Mantrayana are very close to India in terms of the mantras, in terms of the pantheon, in terms of their traditions, in terms of their texts, in all the terms you can say. Hindu gods and goddesses. Indian acharyas were were so much honored, so much respected in China that you can even find their portraits painted on the caves, on the walls of the caves in China. Many acharyas, for example, I would like to give the example of Kumarajiva. Kumarajiva was so famous when a Chinese emperor heard about him, his intellect, about his outstanding scholarship. Then he sent an army of 70,000 soldiers to capture him. And when he was brought to China, he was appointed as Rajguru. So there is a huge history of acharyas who were appointed as Rajagurus and brought as war booty by Chinese emperors. So here I'm just showing you a part of a map of Silk Road, because from there, from Silk Road, from Taxila, there are people, and their people used to go to Khotan, and the other side was Bactria, Samarkand, Konkan, Fargana. And Kashgar is very important. Kashgar was a center of Vedic learning. Even in a modern Chinese map, I have seen it named as Kashi. It was a Kashi for China, and people used to go for studying. This is Kucha, where Kumarajiva was born. This is Khotan. Khotan was a great center of Sanskrit because people used to go from India to Khotan, and from China they used to come to Khotan. And huge number of Sanskrit texts, although most of them are fragmentary, are discovered from Khotan. People used to gather there from all over China and India and other countries, from Persia. Persians were great scholars of Sanskrit. Persia, you can see on this side, and they were traveling to China from this Silk Route. And the translator of Sanskrit text is a Persian Prince Anshikau, whose texts are preserved. So this route bifurcates in Kashgar and meets again at Dunhuang, and from the southern side, it goes via Khotan, and again they meet at Dunhuang. Dunhuang was the point where both met, and many Indians were living there. They had settled there, and they used to study there. Again, there is a long history about it. And beyond that was Great Wall, and beyond this side of the Great Wall, there was nothing China's. There was all Indian culture permeated there all over the place. How difficult was the journey? Just I'm showing you one picture that I took when I visited this place. There was all desert all around. Wherever there is a small water body, it can be a small river, there was some life, and it was so difficult. The journey through Silk Route was so difficult for these monks and acharyas who were traveling both ways. They had to stay for days together to remain without food, and even a drop of water was not available. Many of them died on their way. So their lives are sacrificed for spreading the culture of India. When I reached such places, I bowed to the acharyas who had risked their lives, who had sacrificed their lives. I brought some stones from there as souvenirs. That these are the stones who have seen our acharyas. Even today, when we travel by cars, air conditioned cars, and stay in hotels, we think, we feel, we say that journey is so difficult. Just think about the journey of these acharyas. They had to travel miles and miles, whether they have water or not, whether they have food or not. So, how they spread Indian culture, just a glimpse I'm giving you. This is Gayatri Mantra, so divine for all of us in India. That there was in 17th century, I'm just telling you that from first century AD, even from the 3rd century BC, there's a continuous history in China to the 17th century. This is an example from the 17th century. Then the Qianlong, the Manchu emperor of China, he collected all the Sanskrit mantras from the Tripitaka, asked them to write in 4 different scripts: Manchurian, Chinese, Mongolian, and Tibetan, because around them people used to read these 4 kinds of major scripts. So, can you imagine how big was the collection? Afterwards, it was published, the whole entire collection was published by our Academy, International Academy of Indian Culture, in 22 thick volumes. Sanskrit mantras from the Imperial Palace of China. If you visit the Imperial Palace of China in Beijing, you will see how many beautiful Buddhist statues were there. They have preserved it so carefully with so much of dedication. And Qianlong, why he collected them, these mantras, because his mother was turning 80 years. And when a person turns 80 years, means he has seen 1000 full moon days, Sahasra Chandra Darshi, and he presented this collection of Sanskrit mantras on the 80th birthday of his mother. On the other side, I'm just showing you a bowl of Qianlong, a ritual bowl with Sanskrit mantras. You can try to read Di, Va, Swasti, Swasti, Madhyam, Dine. So, and below I have given all the sides of these ball, that how he is worshipping with a ball. This is a ritual ball. How he's worshipping with a ball, that there should be Swasti in the morning, Swasti in the midday, Swasti in the night. And the tradition continues. This is a photograph of Sadin Ding. She is a singer and she sings only Sanskrit mantras, and she has launched a number of albums. How they used to copy the Sanskrit texts that were translated into Chinese. Blocks were made like this, and ink was applied, and then take impression on paper. They used to make copies whenever there was a text completed in translation, and 3,000 to 5,000 monks used to gather from all over China to participate in any translation project, because translation was not just a simple translation. They used to discuss for every boy how it should be translated. Many emperors and princes wrote forewords to them. They used to cheer those sessions when when a particular text was given a final form, and it was accepted that yes, this is acceptable to China. So here I'm showing you fragments of an old Sanskrit drama, Shariputra Prakarana by Ashwagosha. We have discovered the oldest Sanskrit manuscripts from East Asia. This is one of the examples. The other is, maybe I'll show you later. So there are other examples also, hundreds and hundreds, not only hundreds, but thousands of examples of Sanskrit manuscripts discovered from these sand buried sites because the monasteries are destroyed by after the invasions. This I'm showing you just an example that how Sanskrit, how the spoken Sanskrit, Prakrit, was a language of administration. Language of administration in different documents from different places, different types of documents that I'm showing you here, and written differently in Prakrit, I would say, the spoken Sanskrit. They are there in our National Museum also, but we don't have experts to work on them because they are written in a script that is Kharoshthi. In India, I don't know who is an expert of Kharoshthi. When we start talking about the earliest manuscripts, they are of, in the world, they are of Sanskrit. When we talk of the earliest printed documents, they are of Sanskrit text. This is the earliest printed document of Vajrachedika Prajna Paramita. It is a Buddhist text that is discovered from China and it is kept in the British Museum. Even now, this is a scene from an archaeological site from Japan, how Sanskrit manuscripts are discovered from their archaeological sites. It is from a riverside that became dry after some time because when we visit any temple, we offer something, we recite, we chant, we offer some prayers. In Japan, there was a tradition that if you go for something with some wish for fulfilling, you write a mantra, you write a Sanskrit mantra on the wooden scripts like this that you can see here, and they used to offer in the temple. What the temples would do when there are such a huge number of such manuscripts and scripts are collected there, they used to make bundles and throw in the river. Nadi mein visarjan karna, it's our tradition. So they had the same tradition. So after centuries, the river became dry, and from the dry river bed, a huge number of manuscripts are discovered. When you visit these ruined monasteries, many of them are ruined, you can see how they are still preserved, and China is still preserved. And sorry, I'm talking too much about China, but yes, China is a country which has developed, which has preserved, and still promoting a lot of Indian culture. Here I'm showing you a donor inscription. When you donate something in a temple, in a monastery, then you write your name or what have you donated. So it's written in Sanskrit, and in that it is written that the emperor donated. You can see the emperor sitting with bowing and folded hands towards a huge painting of Buddha that he is offering. This was the level of impact on the lives of the Chinese. Sanskrit was an international language. Whenever people used to travel from one country to another, what we do today, if you go to Japan, you will just have a small booklet of 100 or a few more sentences and some words to communicate a little bit when you reach there. This is a manuscript written in Sanskrit and Khotanese script that shows a conversation between two monks. One is an Indian monk and the other is a Chinese monk. What are they talking about in this? They say, first of all, they say Kushali, means he asked about how are you? Are you okay? Then they start their communication. They say, from where have you come? Have you visited Kashmir? Have you come from Kashmir? Have you visited? Which monasteries have you visited? And have you made an appointment with the emperor? Which text have you brought? So they are talking like this. So this is a text of conversation that is a proof that people used to learn Sanskrit before traveling, because that way they could communicate with them. It is a Sanskrit inscription. The name of the inscription is Ushnish Vijaya, and this is the mantra, Ushnish Vijaya, the same mantra that is written on the Great Wall of China. Can you believe it? The only man-made or built item on the world is Great Wall of China that can be seen from the moon. And this bears a Sanskrit inscription, and it is of Ushnisha Vijaya. If you try, you can just try to read Na, Mo, Ba, 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 Te. So like this, because this is 8th, 9th century script of India that was taken. And this Ushnisha Vijaya is given an anthropomorphic form, personified Ushnisha Vijaya. This is the manuscript that I wanted to show you. The first Sanskrit manuscript that is preserved, the ancient, most ancient manuscript that is preserved in Japan, that is also of Ushnisha Vijaya Dharani. This is written in Gupta script. And can you believe that when Prince Shotoku Taishi, when he drafted the first constitution for Japan, 17 article constitution, based on the philosophy of Bahujana Hitaya, Bahujana Sukhaya, and Panchashila, and for promulgation, before promulgation of the constitution, it was sanctified. Can you believe that the constitution is sanctified with a Sanskrit mantra so that it can work, so that the country can work for the welfare of the people? So these are the democratic concept, the philosophy of India that has been given to all these countries. I'm sorry, I cannot give you more examples. This manuscript is still preserved in Japan, and for many years, scholars like me used to think that this is the earliest Sanskrit manuscript of the world. But after excavations on the Silk Road, the 2nd century manuscripts, Sanskrit manuscripts are discovered. So this is not now the oldest manuscript. When we talk of utsavas, when we talk of festivals, many countries still celebrate many festivals that are similar to India. Here you can see Korean people dancing in front of a pagoda, and on the top you can see a moon. That is the Utsava festival. That is the festival of Sharad Purnima. There are a number of festivals that I have seen, even in Thailand, in Cambodia, in Vietnam, many countries that are very close to India, but sometimes they are changed. Sometimes the way of celebration is changed. Sometimes they have mixed up more than one festival together. For example, the festival of New Year and Holi is mixed up in Thailand. The way they celebrate it, you can only see and realize how they have mixed up them. Pitri Tarpana. We, the people who give Tarpana to our forefathers. So there is a tradition of performing Shraddha in many countries. Here I am showing you my own picture rolls. So it's a black and white. Here you can see a river is flowing, and on top of it, they have made arrangements in a way that anybody can go and tie a strip with Sanskrit mantra written on one side, and on the other side they write the name of the forefathers for whom they want to do tarpana. And they go to tombs also. After cremation, they they preserve the remains and build small stupas on the remains. So when they go there to these places where there are a large number of stupas dedicated to the ancestors, so they offer water. Even today, they go there. So this is the mantra that is written there, A, Vi, Ra, Hum, Kam. So these five, they are written here also, but I'm showing you from here. This is another place. So this represent the five fundamental elements from which our body is made: Prithvi, Up, Tej, Vayu, and Akash. Kham represents Akash. So these are different forms, different shapes, and seed syllables representing them. So I just showed you Avira Hum Kham written. And even now, writing Sanskrit mantras in Japan, they still practice writing these mantras because this is a script for writing mantras. If a statue is broken, we cannot worship. Khandit murti ki hum puja nahi karte. So similarly, a Khandit mantra If it is not written properly, then you cannot use it for prayers. So even today, the monks in monasteries and temples, they study how to write. And I'm showing you how they study, how they practice to write it with the strokes, giving numbers that how your brush, because they write with brush. So how your brush has to move and how one after the other stroke has to be done. This is Shiva, written by a Japanese calligrapher. How has he written? When you write Shiva, it is a huge 6 feet long scroll on which this Shiva is written. I have met this calligrapher. The way they write, they have to stand up for writing such a huge Shiva. They have hold a huge brush, do pranayam before that, so that prana, the breath, has to be controlled. It cannot be broken when you write a mantra. And your brush cannot be dipped the second time. So with a full brush, he has to write Va, but before that, he has to write the E matra of Shiva. But because Ganga flows from the jatas of Shiva, so he has given a dry brush effect with a full brush. Can you imagine how he has done it? It's a matter not only of meditation, but a long time practice, meditation, so much. So much is required for it. And the other is Vayu. See how he has written Vayu. It gives you a feel that something is fluttering. With them reach the Hindu pantheon. This is Indra, this is Agni, and their seed syllables. E for Indra, A for Agni. They are also divine. They are placed on lotus seeds and having halos. And these are the astral deities and to these countries with the Hindu pantheon, and they are assimilated. They still, many countries, they still worship the Hindu deities. Here I'm showing you Devi Saraswati. There are three major goddesses whom a state needs, for example. The three are Saraswati, Lakshmi, and Durga. Because for running a state, you need intellectual power. You need political and administrative power. You need financial power. And all these powers have to be pure, have to be divine. So they worship these deities in many different forms. I cannot go into the details. And I just say that there are many forms of these Hindu deities which I have never seen in India, but they are made, they are preserved in these countries. And on the other side, I'm showing you Om Saraswati Hring 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 Swaha. This is a mantra for Saraswati written by a Tibet. Wherever there is Tibet, wherever there is Tibetan culture, always you will see this mantra Om Mani Padme Hum. Wherever there are Tibetans, there are Mongols, you will see these people just chanting this mantra. This mantra vibrates everywhere. It sanctifies the mind. It sanctifies everywhere, wherever they are. So this is how, and even if you go to a Tibetan area, wherever there are Tibetan people, you will see fluttering banners tied on ropes and tied in air, floating, so that the wind blowing, the air, the breeze blowing touches the mantras and takes the energy of the mantras wherever it reaches. The beautiful monasteries one has to visit to understand what kind of cultural contribution is there. Wherever there is beauty in Asia, wherever there is divine in Asia, wherever there is grandeur in Asia, wherever there are transcendental values in Asia, it is a gift of our acharyas. They were the best children of Mother India, Bharat Mata. Even today, in Zen monasteries, monks sit and meditate. So, with these, just a few things which I could show you in this short period, in this short time. Uh, it was just a glimpse into the contribution of Indian culture all over Asia, from Indonesia to Mongolia, on the other side, you can see from Japan to even to Europe. Yes, I would just like to talk a little bit about Europe because our contribution to Europe is major, basically linguistic, and I want to give you some examples that how Sanskrit has enriched even the English language and all the European language. I'm giving you just a few examples. For example, advocate. Advocate. It has three parts. So, in between voc comes from the Sanskrit root vach. Vach means to speak. Ad is from adhi, but, and it is from the Sanskrit suffix krita. So, adhivakta is advocate. If you take out vach from advocate, what will be there? In English, and there are a few more examples that I have given here. In English, even the words like father and mother are given by Sanskrit. They have become fossilized words in English. If you ask any of the English linguists that what is the etymology of brother, what is the etymology of mother or father or daughter or knight, they cannot tell you, because brother is from bratri, mother is from matri, father is from pitri, knight is from nak. Ask any of the English linguists why there is gh in knight. When I was teaching spellings to my granddaughter of night, she said NIT, night. So I had to tell her no, it has to be NIGHT. Then she was so angry. Why you put in GH in between? So they cannot answer it. Because Nakht is the Sanskrit word, Ka becomes GH, and it has placed it. Similarly, daughter, it comes from Duhitri. So I'm just giving you some words. And anyway, Jan, for example, the words generation, generator, there are so many words made from the word Jan, Gen. This comes from the Sanskrit root Jan, that means to be born. Hydro, sulfuric, phosphorus. Phosphorus is from Bhaswar. So similarly, there are thousands and thousands of words in the English language and also in other European languages. One has to work on it and study it properly, how they have percolated into the European languages. For example, the word giri has become kili in some languages. So because of pronunciation, it has changed. We have published a book from Bharati Vidya Bhavan, Sanskrit and Europe. There we have given a number of articles to study, to read, that how Sanskrit has contributed to the European languages, then how Sanskrit has contributed to the there is another book that is Sanskrit on the Silk Road that talks about East Asia, and Sanskrit on the Maritime Route that talks about, that gives, there are research papers on Sanskrit in Southeast Asia. So that way, it's a series of books. Anybody can just go and just read them. So it's very important to study how India has contributed immensely. I am not saying even a single word exaggerating any point. It is all based on facts, well researched, well documented, not only from India, but also from many countries all over the world, from where I have done documentation, research, and studies. Thank you very much.
I would like to start with my questions. In the beginning, you showed different forms, different om in different scripts. How is it pronounced in these different countries? Is it pronounced as om?
They pronounce om.
In China, Japan, everywhere?
Everywhere it's om.
Very, very interesting. Second
and in
question.
Indonesia, it's very important that they have a very long kind of om. And Ardhachandra, Nad and Bindu. So it goes up. It's beautifully written.
Ma'am, you showed some Indian paintings in Chinese caves. Did they survive the cultural revolution in China? Because the
that
Tibetan
is why it
caves
could
didn't.
come to us. Many of them. So much is destroyed. Not only cultural revolution by Chinese, but also by invasions. And also there is a book written on Silk Route by Germans, and that they have written that when they reached there, the local people, the villagers, told them that they are very late to come. Truckloads of manuscripts have been destroyed and they are thrown into river. And we villagers were told by the people that if you don't destroy these paintings, then these will become as ghosts and they will destroy you and your crops. So every child was involved into destroying these paintings, and I have proofs, taken pictures by myself where only eyes are just with some knife. You can feel that with the knife they have just scrapped them. Lot has been destroyed.
In Tibet, they have almost entirely destroyed all the Tibetan art
Not
and the Indian.
they could not do it entirely because it is too huge. And in China also, they could not destroy it totally, although in Mongolia, almost destroyed. In India also, so much is destroyed, not a single Buddhist monastery stands. But still, something is preserved in these places, and these scholars like us could get them.
There are two questions which are almost related. One is why the world does not this is by Lataji. Why does the world not recognize all the greatness of India? Why they don't acknowledge their roots? And the other question is that the different scripts you showed in Japan, Cambodia, and all, do they accept that all these things that they have, all these elements have Indian origin?
Number one, the first question was acknowledgement of the glory of India. Only Indians don't accept because they don't know. They don't have the knowledge. They don't have inspiration. They don't have education. They don't have exposure. So the first thing is that we Indians have to acknowledge first of all. There are a huge number of scholars whom I know all over the world. They all acknowledge, but we have to work on it. No? And the second question was on the scripts. Yes, of course, there is a complete history about it, and they all acknowledge.
Thank you, Dr. Shishivalaji. I mean, it's been great lecture. But I just want to ask, how can we bring this knowledge and the history that we have for people like me who have not actually learned these kind of histories in their school textbooks? I know that there are some universities that are offering courses on Indology, but they're pretty much focused on yoga and Ayurveda. So can you suggest what options people like me have?
Yeah, there are many kinds and many levels of options. One is I am recommended for the schools, and I am having meetings for that this kind of knowledge should be inserted into the textbooks of our children at the school level. When we teach them, for example, I gave one talk about the new education policy, how we can insert this aspect of our Indian culture, the glory of Indian culture. For example, I said that when we teach them alphabets, because Akshar Gyan aap sabse pehle dete hain. So when we teach them alphabet, the Varnmala, Hindi Varnmala, then first thing we can just show them pictures of different scripts from Indonesia, from Thailand, from Vietnam, from Cambodia, from Myanmar, Sri Lanka, all these countries, that see the difference, see the similarity, how they are derived. They are all the daughters of one script, that is Brahmi. So show them one picture of Brahmi, show them another of Devanagari, show them another of, for example, Pallava script, Grantham script, show them the Sharda script, and then show them how Sharda script has an impact on this Tibetan script, how the Southeast Asian scripts are developed from Pallava script, like this. So just show them. You don't have to teach them. You don't have to tell them that they don't have to study, just to give them this much of knowledge. Then when they learn 1, 2, 3, the numbers. So just I prepared for my grandchildren, when I asked my grandson that yes, you have to study Sanskrit. There was not a single student in his class who were accepting Sanskrit. I said, no, you have to study Sanskrit because this is the most important, most valuable, the richest language. He said, how can you say, Dadi? I said, yes, just listen. I showed him the numbers from Sanskrit, then English, then French. Then I made a table. Sanskrit, English, French, German, and Russian. I said, see, in English there is two, TWO, but two you can write with TU also. But because it is from Sanskrit, wow, so it is TWO. Three is from three. So like this. And in all the European language, India has contributed number system. Then I showed him the Roman system. That for one you write one, एक आपने लगा दिया, दो है तो दो, तीन है तो तीन. Then it's so difficult to write numbers in Roman system. India is the country who gave numerals, symbols for all numbers, decimal system and zero to the world. So when a child is in third class or second class, even then he can understand. Oh, this is so amazing for a child. Then step by step, when you talk about gravitation, then you can tell, oh, our rishis in the Rig Veda gave the first time the concept of gravitation is given in Rig Veda. Just give one line. So like this, you keep on adding and adding and adding a few lines here and there in all the books, not just Sanskrit, not just history, not just science, not just social science, everywhere. So this is how we can teach in schools. Then you come to the college level, there can be special courses and in different departments, then you can have special classes like this, that India's cultural contribution to the world should be a course and people should learn it.
Madam, I just have this curious question. You were talking about new education policy, and then you said this is how we can introduce, as kids and students in a school about all these things. I'm just wondering if the whole system or the teachers themselves are aware of these things to impart this knowledge to the kids or the students.
They are not aware of that. So they have to study and we have to give them material.
How far are we in terms of getting into the curriculums with this kind of rich literature which is missing from the curriculum?
I'm just giving some talks as a member of the Mission High Level Committee constituted by the Ministry of Education for Indian Knowledge Systems. And I had a meeting with the chairman of the newly established board, Bharatiya Shikshan Board. And I'm just giving them suggestions, meeting them that this is how they should be done. Let us see how much, and I'm just giving them my stuff, my books, whatever I know, whatever knowledge, and other books also that we have, I can suggest them. And how I just studied this Rashtriya Shiksha Niti, how we can insert into this, what we can do. So let's see how much is possible. And the point is that the perspective has to change. And there should be a balance of weightage given to time. If we give, how many pages are we giving to the earliest period, the Vedic age, the Puranic age, the Gupta period? How much pages or words are we giving to the great empires like Vijayanagar and other so many great empires, the warrior classes? How we are telling our children? What we are doing is that our perspective is different, talking about history especially, because all our history books, most of, you can say, our history books are based on the historical records, the chronicles that are written either by Greeks or by Britishers or by Arabs or by invaders, so-called Mughals. I don't accept the word Mughal. It needs a lot of research, but Mughal is a misnomer. They were not Mongols actually. There can be intermingling of Mongol blood, but I'm not going into the details of that right now. But the perspective has to change. We have to talk first about our empires, and then which empire, which king fought with whom, and what was the situation. How he fought, where, and what happened. Was he victorious? Even if he was defeated, we should say he was defeated. We should not say Akbar was victorious or Babur was victorious. So our perspective has to change. We are not talking about the warrior classes of India, the Rajputs, all the Rajputs, the Sikhs, the in Jammu, in Maharashtra, the Marathas, everywhere. Why Alexander is called great? His soldiers said, no, we cannot move on any further. No, because they had never seen such soldiers. They had never seen such kind of weapons. That is why he took a number of people to manufacture weapons. Because our iron ore in the Gandhar region, Pushkalavati, was of a very high quality and our technology was very high. They did not know about it. That is why they did not move on. After that, they had decided to move back. So who was great? We are not talking about our great king who fought with Alexander. We say Alexander the Great. So the perspective has to change, and the real story based on facts. I am not saying without facts. I have written a research paper on this. Pushkalavati, what kind of weapons were they making? And I need further research by people to be done that India's contribution to the steel industry of Europe.
And very informative and enlightening talk. And you talked about the education system, and one of the person viewing it also expressed that why don't we teach the children? The problem which I find in school teaching is the teachers just take the textbook and make them read it or explain only those 2 lines that are written in the textbook. Mine is that when you are teaching, why do we start from the text itself? Because every chapter in the textbook has a little story which you can take up from our culture, from our social, economic, political, any condition. You can take it and make them explain. Like, I'll give an example. Like during the Second World War, when in weddings we always have these songs before the actual wedding takes place. In the evening, women would get together in the house where the wedding was taking place. And there was this folk song which during the Second World War was very much prevalent in the areas of Punjab and Haryana, that ऐसी क्या जल्दी मचाई राशन में शादी कराई. So it's telling you what are the economic conditions of that time, how much a common man is suffering. When you weave these things into history or into economics, you are able to understand the structure better. I mean, I have been teaching for a very long time. I've retired from teaching, and I never started the chapter of what was written in the book. I always told them a story from our Veds, from our Upanishads or Ramayana or any other thing. And then I would ask them question, how are they going to relate it to the present situation? Whether it was on communism or socialism, there are so many stories. So it is the teaching pattern needs changing, and we have to be proud of ourselves. That is very essential.
Yeah, this is what I said in my first meeting, that yes, according to the new education policy, you are giving good education, you are making them good professionals, everything is good. Charitra nirman bhi kar rahe hain, but we have to have a Gauravanvit Bharat. I want to add that Gauravanvit Bharat, what you said. So when we read this history, when we study this, when we know about it, so I'm going to many faculty development programs so that teachers know about. So to many universities, so at least teachers have some idea. Maybe we can rewrite the textbooks and add something to the textbooks.
You said from R. Karnik, you said you have been talking at faculty development programs. Did you ever come across the Marxist teachers confronting you? How were those experiences?
I don't know if there were any Marxist teachers. I never confronted, never people, because all my work is fact-based, well-researched, documented. So nobody can confront me. And I never had this kind of a chance because whatever I'm saying, it's a fact. They can't deny whether he's a Marxist or communist or whatever, BJPite or Congressite, whatever. Everybody is an Indian first. So parties come later. We cannot divide our heritage into parties. It's
And-
their heritage also. It's just a chance that you become a Marxist. Doesn't matter that you don't own that heritage. You cannot disown that. It's a heritage of your forefathers also. They were not Marxists.